Madam President, allow me at the outset to thank the 10 elected members of the Security Council, Bahrain, Colombia, Democratic Republic of Congo, Denmark, Greece, Latvia, Liberia, Pakistan, Panama, and Somalia for requesting this emergency meeting on the humanitarian situation in Gaza, as well as China, France, Russia, and the United Kingdom for supporting this request. Allow me also to thank the Presidency for convening this emergency meeting. I also wish to thank USG Fletcher for his briefing and relentless efforts, and through him, the humanitarian community in Palestine, which has been a primary target of Israel's attacks. I want to mention two humanitarians today. Dr. Hussam Abu Safiyyeh, who was abducted and detained by Israel and remains in solitary confinement, and Wasim al-Maghari from the Palestine Red Crescent, who was abducted by armed militias operating in areas under Israeli control and whose fate remains unknown. We hold Israel responsible for their lives. Allow me also to thank Ms. Khalidi, Bushra Khalidi, from Oxfam for her outstanding briefing, and through her, all civil society organizations, Palestinian and international, who continue mobilizing to address the suffering of the Palestinian population despite Israel's attacks and restrictions. Madam President, all of us here know what needs to be done. If one to listen very closely to all of your statements, you know exactly what needs to be done. We have known that for years. These demands are rooted in international law, in IHL, and the obligations of the occupying power, in UN resolutions, in the provisional orders of the ICJ, and lie at the heart of the humanitarian principles and mission. The question is, are you going to act? If you know what needs to be done, you don't need an invitation to implement what you articulate in your statements and in the consensus that we listen to. We also know Israel has no intention of abiding by these rules. It has now been listed for its grave breaches against Palestinian children, for the sexual violence perpetrated against Palestinians. It has a horrific and unmatched record in the number of children killed, UN personnel killed, humanitarian workers killed, medical personnel killed, journalists killed. And in this regard, we salute the courage and the principled position of the Secretary General for taking these steps. It has destroyed Israel, over 90% of buildings in Gaza. President Trump denounced the same policy of knocking down entire buildings in Lebanon. It destroyed the hospitals and the schools and denied electricity, water, and waste management, and starved an entire civilian population. And facing criticism from its unlawful actions, it prefers to attack the critics rather than end its grave breaches. We have seen it in Israel's decision to end contacts with the UN Secretary General a few weeks ago, and today with the EU High Representative. So unfortunately, trying to reason with this Israeli government will clearly not work. They take note of what you say and your position, and they continue breaching international law and making the life of the Palestinian the hell that we are living. Madam President, we have pushed for a ceasefire for over 2 years, and finally, President Trump and the mediators, with the support of the region and the international community, were able to secure a ceasefire after over 70,000 Palestinians were killed. Most of them were children and women. This ceasefire agreement saved countless of lives. Palestinians in Gaza thought they have survived and their ordeal had come to an end. But the killing continued. Israel killed over 1,000 Palestinians since the ceasefire entered into force, including over 250 children and 120 women. Parents continued to lose their children, and children continued to lose their parents. So what will be done for Israel to actually and finally ceasefire? What could be done in order to implement the first item on Resolution 2803 and the 20-point action plan of President Trump? Do we have a permanent ceasefire, or we have a continuous fragile ceasefire and the war is continuing according to the wishes of the leaders of Israel? The fact that we must still state the following self-evident truths illustrates the depth of this tragedy. Denying humanitarian access and manufacturing a permanent humanitarian crisis is unacceptable under any pretext. Denying medicine, shelter, water, forcing families to live in makeshift tents amidst the rubble, the sewage, the garbage, and the rodents can never be justified. Collective punishment is prohibited, and it should not be allowed at all, and those who conduct such illegal criminal behavior should be held into account. There is decent temporary shelter available a couple of kilometers away from those who desperately need it. It's just on the other side of the Rafah crossing. There is life-saving aid. There is medicine there, almost within grasp, and yet beyond reach. If that is not engineered suffering, what is it? It is by design. It is not natural accident. It is premeditated. Madam President, a key element of Resolution 2803 was its three fundamental, paragraph number 3, which states no occupation, no annexation, no displacement. Israel leaders cannot stop themselves from confessing publicly. These remain their goals. Starting from Netanyahu himself, who gleefully ordered his army to annex 70% of Gaza before a cheering audience. The humanitarian catastrophe is being prolonged to achieve these goals: displace the people and annex the land. Displace the people and annex the land. Goals that are being pursued in Gaza and the West Bank, including East Jerusalem. Madam President, this taunting and tormenting of 2 million Palestinians has to stop. Israel does not have a right of life and death over them, over us. Nor can they continue living in this hell until Israel feels it is enough. Everything Israel does is to make Gaza unlivable. The United States, the United Nations, third states, and third parties should not be in a constant negotiation with Israel over getting life-saving assistance to those who desperately need it. A negotiation in which every step forward is undermined by endless conditions, delays, and procedural obstacles. Madam President, allow me at the end to remind everyone who are speaking of 2 million people who have endured an atrocious assault and a genocide for 3 years, including 1 million children, many with life-altering injuries, all having lost family members they could not mourn, all displaced, countless of them having experienced starvation. 1 in every 4 Palestinian children in Gaza is still projected to face acute malnutrition this year. Our people are being denied even the most elementary healthcare, education, access to water, and sanitation. These are people. We are people. These are families. These are lives. These are children. They thought they were saved. They are still barely surviving. There is no excuse for this manufactured human catastrophe. Ending it should be unconditional. Should be unconditional. It is not linked to any other element of the plan, and it should not rely on the will or whims of the Israeli government who has manufactured it in the first place. It is an international responsibility. It is your responsibility as the body of the United Nations responsible for the maintenance of international peace and security. It is your responsibility and an international responsibility to bring it to an end, and to bring it to an end now. Palestinians in Gaza have waited long enough, suffered far too much, and cannot be asked to wait any longer. Thank you, Madam President.